everyone, this is DM Talks, a podcast that aims to promote well-being and assist healing, whether that be physically, mentally or spiritually. Ultimately, we just want to be seen in our entirety, and this podcast hopes to show listeners how multifaceted they are. We're all the centre of our own universe, so why don't we do more to better our own existence? Welcome back, everyone. Have you missed me? It's been a week. Yeah, I'm really excited today. We've got a new episode. The sun is shining. I'm going to talk about something that I feel very passionate in and I want to educate people on. And I'm really excited to get into it. But first, let me introduce my guest. Introduce my guest. I don't know why I just went really silent then. But so I'm joined today by one of my friend's partners. We had a really lovely phone call and I'm super excited to hear their experiences and like just how they got involved with the subject of meditation. But without further ado, welcome, Jack. How are you doing?
Hey, yeah, I'm fine, thank you. It's a beautiful day, isn't it? Look at that. The sun's shining.
The sun's shining so much. Like, I'm really appreciating just being outdoors at the moment. So, like, the fact that I'm literally next to my huge window right now with all the sun next to me, I'm like, yes, give it all to me. But yeah, how have you been? What have you done today?
Fine, nothing. I've not done my meditation, unfortunately, which is no, not quite yet. So I'm going to do it a bit later on. But
but it's quite funny because literally I was... just before this episode, I was like, oh God, I haven't meditated today. Let me go do it quickly. But you never know. Maybe after the episode, your meditation will be even deeper. So definitely. You never know. We've said meditation 3 times, so that means we're gonna talk about meditation. Woo! The podcast, this episode is going to talk about mindfulness. It's going to talk about breathing. It's going to talk about this sense of presence, and I really wanted to talk to an individual who meditates as much as me, so we could sort of like talk about what we've learned and give it to the masses, you know?
Of course, definitely.
But before I jump into that, I'll take you to the first segment, which is the divine.
Perfect.
So the divine is where you nominate a good thing that you've seen, whether it's online or offline. And I read something, I found out about something which is super cute, that I wanted to share with the group. So me and Jack live in Manchester, and there is this company called Invisible Manchester, which provide walking tours around the city. So what's unique about their own friendly walking tours of Manchester is that they actually the tour guides that they use have all been affected by homelessness, and they simply live and breathe the city, and in their words they say they offer their own personal insight into the past, present and future. And when I came across this article and then did my own research into it, I just was so like touched, because with Manchester I love how there's that community aspect is so there, you know, that worker bee mentality. Like, it's present in the community, it's present in the city, it's present in our little cul-de-sacs, it's present when we bloody walk down Curry Mile. Like, there's so many instances in Manchester where it's like a collective like working together. And the fact that this tour or this company wants to give back to people that have been affected by homelessness, but in a way that is so adaptable to them, because it's like they've been homelessness, so who's best for the job, because they know what they're doing, you know? And like, they're also giving jobs for people that didn't have work. So yeah, no, it just really it made me happy, so I thought I'd nominate them.
Definitely. And it's funny you talk about kind of the community of Manchester, because I think I'm from Nottingham originally. And I think when I came to Manchester, that was really the first thing that I noticed, is how much of I feel like everybody from Manchester has such a strong sense of that in them. And I think even that's probably been amplified more so sort of after the bombing a few years back.
Yeah.
So I think definitely correct. And what you mentioned there about the walking tours, I'm probably going to check that out, because that sounds fascinating.
We should all do it together. How definitely. Sick would that be? Like, literally, I was reading about this lady called Laura, and She says here, as a transgender woman, Laura explores the history of inspirational Mancunian women who have influenced her journey of transition. Her exuberant character and cheerful attitude makes her a unique and exciting tour of Manchester's city centre. So she goes around the city and sorry, I'm just reading this thing here. So yeah, she goes around the city and talks about the suffragette movement and talks about the long stories, ideas, and challenges about women and the history of homelessness. And I just think that's really empowering because like you've got individuals that are Mancunian, right? But you've got individuals from different like facets of identity, so they're able to give you an insight into more, you know?
Yes, of course. It's funny as well you mentioned about the transgender because I know for a fact that Salford is kind of was sort of where a lot of the transgender stuff started.
Oh,
And
really?
yeah. I've read some good books. I'll have to lend you some. But
Definitely.
there's like a transgender remembrance statue somewhere in the village as well, which I'll also send you kind of the directions for.
Amazing.
The more you dig into it, Manchester and transgenderism is linked very 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 closely. So it's fascinating.
Oh, I love that. No, that's honestly like I'm definitely gonna have to read the books that you suggested. Definitely. What would you like to nominate for the Divine, Jack?
For the divine, I was thinking. Recently, I finished a book by an Irish author called James Joyce, and the book was called Ulysses. And I'm absolutely huge fan of Joyce. And I've had Ulysses on my shelf for about 2.5 years, and I tried to read it a couple of times. It's a long book. It's very very challenging. It's about 932 pages.
Oh, wow.
And he invents a ton of new words. It's like a whole new language. But in reading Ulysses, you really feel Joyce's connection to the divine, and it's all about kind of Irish identity and stuff. And the fact that I managed to finish it after maybe 12 or 13 weeks of reading it is I'm absolutely over the moon because I feel like I've achieved like a serious life goal. And obviously I think
Oh,
lots of
sick.
times people don't take the time to say, yes, I'm very proud that I achieved that. But when I finished Ulysses, I was like, I have to take the time to like reflect
Yes.
because it was so goddamn good. It was a bit of a slog in the middle, but I think overall it was such an enjoyable read, and I loved it. And I'm just so happy that after having it on my shelf for so long, I can say yes, I've definitely finished that. So
Amazing.
yeah, definitely Ulysses by James Joyce. If you've not heard of it, I definitely recommend looking into it because it's
Ooh, no, that
mind
just
blowing.
sounds great. And I love that because it's like, yes, I'm going to shout my praises whilst they're here. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like, I need to just, I need to praise loudly. I need to be happy loudly. I need to show gratitude loudly. I need to, you know, be, I think when we experience joy, sometimes it goes so fast, but if we take the moment to breathe and reflect and sort of oh, the words on the tip of my tongue, but like it's this idea of affirmation, isn't it?
definitely.
Because
I
it's
think
like
we live in a culture of instant gratification, and I think that it's very rare. When you finish one thing, you're just on to the next thing, and I think sometimes it's good to slow down and just take stock of kind of where you've gone and how far you've come, what you've accomplished. In my opinion,
do you always slow down by reading?
I read a lot. I did English lit at uni, and I think I
Amazing.
absolutely fucking hated it when I started because I was like, oh my god, there's so many books, there's so many pages. This is a 300-page book. This is going to take me forever to read. But then, like,
Yeah.
obviously, the more you read, the more you sort of get into it. I think for me, I slow down primarily by meditating, playing a bit of guitar. Reading for me is it's just when I read books, I'm looking to examine them. So it's sort of an enjoyable. I don't read to relax. For me, I enjoy the challenge of the book and looking into the book and looking into all different aspects of it. So, but it is good to slow down. I think reading in itself is a very mindful activity. Anyway,
No, for sure. Like one thing that I'm learning is how I can use mindfulness in certain activities. So, yes, doing meditation like independently, like in an intimate place in a setting is great. But let's say if I find mindfulness in reading my book or going for a walk or you know, if I can.
Or washing the dishes, for example, which is what
Exactly.
I tend to do.
Exactly. I always use that example because the thing is with washing the dishes is such like everybody on the world probably has washed the dishes. Well, I mean,
Definitely,
I
definitely.
thought so, you know.
Yeah,
And washing the dishes, nobody actually thinks when we're washing the dishes, we're just concerned of getting the food off, getting the stains out, like having our hands in water, like sort of the change in temperature. Like it's very like practical, but also like a small thing. It's something that's right in front of me that distracts me from my mind. And washing the dishes, like honestly, it's such a good mindful activity. Like I'll literally wake
definitely,
up,
definitely,
brush my teeth, go downstairs, wash the dishes, and go for a run. And it's like a bit of a
definitely.
routine
I
now.
think
Like
out of all the house chores, I think washing the dishes is probably not necessarily my favorite, but it's probably my least hated one. You know, but I
I
think
know.
yeah,
Well, it
you're
depends
quite
what you're
right.
washing up, isn't it? It's like, am I
Definitely,
washing up some like dried rice that's in a pot of a pan that's just
yeah,
like crusting over, and like now I
yeah.
have to let it to soak. Do you know what I mean? Like,
So yeah, I do enjoy it. I think mindfulness is all about. It's not. I think we mentioned this when we had that phone call, but I think it's not necessarily meditation is more than just kind of the time you spend sitting down on the mat. You have to bring that sort of mentality to other aspects of the day, and I think everything, everything, washing the dishes, brushing your teeth, even getting dressed. It's all this is all, if you go approach it with sort of the mindfulness aspect of it, I think it really changes things. With washing the dishes, for example, I think that's something a lot of people would do just to get it over with as quick as I can. It's an inconvenience, but I
okay,
think if
yeah.
you slow down and you take your time, then you start to enjoy it.
Mate, yeah, that's so right. Like, I think there's actually a great opportunity to take it to decoding the messes. And decoding the messes is something that we want to unpack that we may consider mess, which is either online or offline. As this episode is all about meditation, um, I want to talk about common obstacles that we may approach if you start to meditate. And my first question for you, Jack, is why do you think meditation is so, well, is perceived as so wishy and washy?
It's a very interesting question, and I think there's lots of answers to it. In my opinion, I think spirituality is can sort of be frowned upon because for people who aren't involved in it, their idea of it is really the people they see sort of practicing it. And
Yeah.
if you have somebody who's super not into it at all, and then they see somebody who's there sort of talking about crystals and this, that, the other, they might just like that. Look, dude, that sounds ridiculous. So I'm not getting involved at all. But if you were to give that same person, a copy of the Upanishads or the Bhagavad Gita, and they can slow down and they can read that book and they can get to the core aspects of what the spirituality is about. Spirituality is more than meditation. It's more than healing crystals and this, that, the other. Ultimately, I mean, it's all about kind of getting to the reality of the human experience. So I think if with spirituality, you have to be careful because you don't want to come off as kind of totally delusional, like a lot of kind of people perceive religious people to be. I think as well, maybe with the spirituality, for me anyway, always been more of like an individual journey rather than organized, like Christianity or Islam or
Yeah.
Judaism or whatever. So I think spirituality generally gets a bad rap because the people who are the loudest are not necessarily saying the best things about it in a way.
Uh,
Do you know what I mean?
yes, I get what you mean.
So
Uh,
I don't know. I'm always careful. I'm no expert, and I'm always a bit hesitant to come on here because I don't. At the end of the day, I don't really know what I'm talking about. But I'm going to try
but we
my best
don't.
anyway.
None of us do.
Definitely,
So like that's why
definitely.
I'm happy that we're all here together because like um even with this podcast, like I know there's certain times where I might have said the wrong thing or like I might not have the right word for the right phrase, etc. And even though it might sound I guess discomforting at first because you're second guessing yourself. Wait, oh wait, no, doesn't sound right. But the thing
Definitely,
is, we
definitely.
learn as we go on. Like I'm sure at some point at the end of this podcast, I will have to develop like video of clips
Yeah.
of all the things that I've noticed that I've said the wrong thing. Like, oh my God, it was so funny. I think on one episode I said penis instead of Venus. Like, and everyone's brought it up to me. And I just be like, oh, well, you said it wrong, but it's funny, so let's go. But before I keep completely digress on the way that I don't say things, I wanted to talk about yeah, what you were saying about this whole sort of perception. Have you ever watched Explained on Netflix?
I think I've seen a couple. I think how long are the episodes? They're about 20 minutes.
Like 20
aren't they?
minutes, yeah, not long,
I
not
think
long.
I think I've seen a couple, but if there's any you recommend, I'll definitely check them out.
Oh, you know, I have to show you some links. So basically, I watched one yesterday. They did, they did the Explain series, but they did it on the mind. And there's
Yeah,
this 20-minute episode about mindfulness, and it spoke about there was this bit in the documentary. There's this doctor called John Kabat-Zinn who wrote The Full Catastrophe of Living, and it was this book that encouraged, it was one of the first books of its kind that encouraged mindfulness and sort of deep meditation as relaxation techniques or stress reduction techniques, that was produced in the West. And literally in the book and in an interview, they explicitly say how he did not want the book to be flaky and be perceived as wishy-washy.
yeah,
And when they were asked about this in an interview, they were like, would Americans take to mindfulness practices from the East? And if you think about it like that, and without even looking, without, sorry, I can't speak. So, if you look at it like that in relation to the history of the East and the West, and you look at how destructive the West has been on sort of disarming and sort of
of course.
appropriating or
Yeah,
simulating the culture, you can understand how things are rejected, if that makes sense. But so after I found that out in the video, it was interesting because the narrator said changes in the media representation alleviated this concern. So the book came out and the book was promoted to help illness. And because it's a book that you do in relation of things, of course it's going to help illness,
yeah,
it's going to have so many copies. But whilst this was happening, there was more media representation of East East representation within the media. So
yeah,
like, let's say there was a scene that they used in the documentary of Keanu Reeves playing Buddha.
yeah,
Do you know what I mean? Like, even though that is problematic, like the fact that that scene was even there sort of makes this culture more accessible to the
yeah.
viewer, and then they won't be as in fear of when it's promoted to them or suggested to them. Because
Definitely,
like
definitely.
with meditation, it has so many benefits, like not just for peace of mind, but physically, because you're able to recognize that thoughts are temporary. You don't react anymore, you respond. And even that couple seconds, minute, or however you spend it, gives you some, I guess, it gives you clarification, but from self. Like, I think it definitely strengthens the within, no, the like sort of your internal state.
Definitely, I totally agree with you. And what you say there about the kind of the gap. So I noticed that the very obviously there's a ton of benefits to meditation that I'm sure we'll get to later. But
Yeah.
the very first thing I knew, because I used to be quite quick to kind of flare up. Like if anything goes wrong, it's like, oh, this is the end of the world,
Yeah.
And I think the very first benefit that I noticed with the meditation, this is probably after maybe a week and a half, maybe 2 weeks of doing it consistently every day, something would happen and I wouldn't react because I would just think, I would take a stock and I would say that has happened and now this is going to be my result. So I think people are so quick with emotions to react to anything, and normally you'll find that when people react, it's loud, angry, swearing, this, that, the other. But now if something happens, it's just like, oh, okay, I'll just crack on. You just
Yeah.
these things happen in it, but it's nothing to don't cry over spilled milk. Not at all.
Exactly. Like it's like like I'm sure someone has said to you in your life, "Oh, it's not that deep." And with meditation, you can sort of chill in the fact that it's not that deep, and
Definitely,
like
definitely.
it definitely I think it gives you more like I don't want to say emotional. Well, I mean, emotional intelligence is linked to it, but I think it gives you more room for thought and more room to be rational and logical because you're able to see a situation for what it is more so than your proposed emotion that is related to that situation. So, example, let's say I'm at my house and I haven't been meditating recently, and then someone throws away, like, well, let's say one of my housemates like threw away like something that I was looking forward to. That would annoy me. But I'm telling you now, like, if I'd meditated every single day, I'd be like, oh, that's the food. But let's say if I hadn't meditated that day, my irritability would be heightened,
Yes,
like,
very much
and
so.
even something as
Definitely.
trivial as food, it would be like, oh my god, oh,
Yeah.
it would offend you, but it doesn't. It's not offensive, It's only your relationship with how you want to respond to it.
Exactly, and I think that's what it is. It's meditation. The way it changes kind of the brain, in my opinion, is that it that you realize that these things happen, and like you're saying, it's not that the situation has changed, it's your own perception of the situation. So you can't, and I think with meditation, obviously, you come to understand that you can't really change anything that happens in life kind of just happens, unless of course it's you inflicting the damage, or whatever.
Yeah.
But these things happen, and I think it's from that compassion as well that you tend to develop, towards other people. You notice that things happen that aren't in your control. Sometimes people do things that are maybe a bit out of character, but at the end of the day, it doesn't, it's how you respond to it. So you could flare up and you could be like, oh, for God's sake, da, 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 this, that, the other, so angry,
Yeah.
so irritable. Like you were saying, the irritability thing for me actually relates kind of super hard, because I'm if anything goes wrong, it's just like, oh my God. But now it's kind of like calm down, and you
Yeah.
just think about it, and ultimately you just get on with it, don't you? And just be, if somebody throws away a piece of food or whatever that you were really looking forward to eating, it's that's fine. It's not the end of the world. And I think now that we're all a bit wiser, we can just be like, oh, okay, yeah, well, it doesn't matter. These things happen.
Do you know what I mean? Like, now I'm just looking back at that. It's quite a funny example to use, but I mean, we move. My next question for you is: when did you start getting into meditation? Like, what was your first introduction to it?
That's a good question. The more I meditate, the more I tend to focus on the present. So it's
Okay.
it's hard for me to sort of revisit the past,
No,
because
fair
I think
enough.
I've put a lot of it sort of behind me, and I've kind of come to terms with where I am now. But in terms of sort of meditation, that was something I was always familiar with, but it was nothing I was. I didn't have any experience with it. I didn't know how to do it. This, whatever. I think maybe it was about 2.5, maybe 3 or so years ago when I sort of really started dipping my toes into it. And I think I read up on it, and I did like a little bit, and it's that kind of thing. I don't, I go through phases. I don't know about you, but I'll be really into something for like a week,
Oh,
and then after that
completely.
I won't do it forever. So I think meditation for me, I did it on and off for maybe like a year, maybe a year and a half. But I would sort of look back and I'd be like, well, that month I meditated 14 times, but then I didn't meditate at all for the next 6 months.
Yeah.
And then it would kind of it comes and goes in sort
In
of
waves.
phases. Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. But then I think it's all about trying to establish that daily practice, and I think for me that was always the hardest part. But I probably got into meditation maybe 2.5, 3 years back. I've always been kind of into psychedelic music or whatever, so I think that has always been a part of me. And the more I sort of looked into the psychedelic, through either through my own experiences or through talking with other people, I think there's such a strong link between those kinds of mushrooms or acid or anything like that.
Yeah.
But there's a very strong link between those things and the divine, and I think really it's what you do with it. If a lot of people talk about acid as a tool of self-reflection, and it is, if you want it to be. If you just want to take it and dick around with your friends for 8 hours, then be my guest. But if you're super serious about it, you can use those kinds of sort of technologies. I would say you can use those technologies to enhance your life and enhance your connection with the divine. And I think it's all about, when you get the message, you have to hang up the phone. I think that's what I heard somebody say. So when you know that it's all about that, when you come to realize that life is all about your connection with the divine, then you sort of steer away from that and you double down on the meditation, in my opinion.
Yeah. So I'm really taken away about that. That was such a lovely answer. I really, really liked your response. Amazing. Like, I think it's weird actually, like, even though I obviously like wasn't completely meditating at this age, I remember my mum would always tell me when I was younger, I would just, like, let's say when I was like 3 or like 2 or something, I'd just go to the side and be like,
Yeah.
and like that was like, I guess my first introduction to meditation. However, it wasn't really that effective. But I came to university in 2016. My university had loads of, well, I'm sure they do it at bare universities, to be fair. Like, it had mindfulness
Yeah.
workshops, it had group sessions, which was really helpful because, like, when I was battling with anxiety and depression, like, throughout uni, taking myself out for an hour or for half an hour, whether it's in lunch or whether it was at the end of my uni day, it would be so helpful because I
Yeah.
could sort of, I knew that I wasn't isolated because I was surrounded by 20 people who also was doing it. So
Yeah.
number one, immediately that helped. Number two, the I want to say lecturer. What are they? I don't want to say, like, someone who's a meditation practitioner. Is that what you call them? Like
Teacher, yeah,
yeah,
meditation practitioner, that's a good one.
yeah.
It's a bit of a
I mean,
mouthful, but
it's a bit of a mouthful, isn't it? I'll just say the host. So the host, he was so cool. His name was Omar, and like he was very. I mean, he would, whatever you expect a meditation practitioner to be, he was that. Like, he was just so calm and wise. Like, he had a certain energy
definitely,
about him that
definitely.
made you feel comforted.
Yeah.
And I remember when one of the first meetings that I had at this workshop, did meditation. We were doing like 10 minutes. So everyone was sitting cross-legged, our hands out, and we were all breathing, but also just trying to keep the silence in our minds, you know?
Yeah.
And after it, he was like, "So everyone, how was that for you?" No one spoke. So he was like, "Was it a bit hard?" And we all kind of like nodded and shrugged, and he's like, "No, that's okay. For a lot of you, this might have been your first time, but with meditation, it's repeated practice. The more
Definitely.
that you repeat, being still with yourself and just being present with your thoughts that come and go, the easier it becomes." And during that period of, I guess, learning that you can't switch your thoughts on and off, like you're still in you're still in the pre-stage, innit? Like, you're
Yeah.
going to meditation practices, but sometimes it feels like you're doing it wrong because then you start thinking about thinking, and it's really, really
Yes.
weird. Like, you'll literally be sitting there and you're like, clear mind. Oh wait, what happened? Oh wait, but is this clear mind this clear, or is
Yeah.
this clear mind blue, or is this dark, or have I taken this? And you're literally, your mind goes into so many different pathways and so many different like holes, because you just end up ruminating, but you're
Yes.
ruminating in like a very like, it's weird ruminating in a clear way, you know?
Yeah,
Like, do
yeah,
you
of
know what I
course, of
mean?
course.
So when I had that experience, it did test my patience because I just kind of felt frustrated in myself for not like doing it right. But the thing is, there's no right or wrong way to do it. Like, it literally just works for you. You have to learn how to sit with yourself. And I mean, like, really sit with yourself, whether that's sitting by yourself, listening to nothing, or like listening to a host or meditation practitioner sort of guide you. I think
Yeah.
the meditation practitioner was probably a good starting point to meditation. So I would definitely advise people to go to workshops and stuff. But it's I generally think that sort of patience or the acceptance with myself came in later, because when I was going to the meetings, I was also in a environment where that was stressful. So it was harder to, I guess, pick it up and switch on and switch off. Like I was sort of living my life daily, but now when I look at meditation, I see it as something that affirms me, that's something that refills me, something that sort of like if I'm feeling off balance, I know if I meditate, I'm gonna feel so much better.
Yes, definitely. I think meditation is kind of like a reset button in a way, and I think when you meditate for a long time consistently, when you fall off for a few days, because people are flawed, and I'll be I'll hold my hand up easily to say it is extremely hard to get into that habit of doing it consistently. And I think when you do it consistently and then you suddenly you stop doing it consistently, maybe 2-3 days down the line you start getting really irritable, and I think the best part of meditating is being able to know when you need to meditate.
It's sick, isn't it? Like sometimes I'll be like, oh, I'm in a bad mood, and I'm like, shit, I haven't meditated for 3 days. That's why.
Yeah.
Like, do you know what I mean?
Definitely.
It's like I just wanted to
Definitely.
sit with myself, but at the time, it's like okay. So let's say if I've been meditating for a month, I'm not gonna be aware of that. However, when I'm meditating for like 2 months or 3 months now, it's like, oh shit, yeah, that
Yeah,
thing.
definitely,
And
definitely.
I love as human beings when we know the cause of something, it immediately relieves any discomfort or alleviates
Definitely, of
frustration,
course.
because we're like, oh, that's where that thing came from. Okay, cool. Amazing. So following on in that episode that I watched on Explained, they spoke about this region in the brain called the DMN, and that's the default mode network, right?
Yeah.
And I should talk about neuroplasticity as well. So neuroplasticity is this idea that the brain or certain regions in the brain can manipulate, enlarge, decrease, dependent on how it is or not being used. So essentially, people with who practice mindfulness, they're going to be able to strengthen the connection to the DMN, because they're going to be practicing sort of, stillness, the breathing techniques, and brain activity in this part, right, talks about how we revisit the past, how we imagine or create a future, but it also is line with how we endlessly ruminate about regrets and fears.
Yeah.
So other people know it as the monkey mind, right? And if you practice meditation, you're mindful and kind enough to bring it back to the present and aka tame the monkey mind.
Yes, definitely. That's something I've heard before for sure.
And I just find it really interesting because the DMN is overreactive in individuals who battle with anxiety or depression. So you can understand how meditation can be an encouraged tool that they can use to alleviate from some of at first it will be alleviating the physical responses, because if we meditate, we can talk about how it decreases heart pressure, how it sort of alleviates tension in the body, because we are encouraged to see our body, we're encouraged to be mindful of the sensations in our body,
Definitely,
So I
definitely.
find it like super interesting how we're sort of encouraging this like mental muscle that meditators have, and that mental muscle is going to have crazy effects,
Definitely, of course. What you were saying there, I mean, about kind of living in the past and the future, I think is so goddamn true. And I came to this realization a few weeks back because I've been meditating for a while. But what's
How
the
long
point
is
in
it?
what was that? Sorry.
How long have you been meditating, sorry?
Two and a half, maybe 3 years
Yeah.
up and down, but then religiously sort of the last year for sure. And I think even being in lockdown has been, honestly, it's a fucking blessing for meditation, because you've got no excuse, in my opinion, to not do it.
Yeah, just try. Like, I even sent videos to my mum and she started meditating. I was like, hey,
Definitely, and I think I came to the realization that there's no point in meditating, half hour every day if when you're not sat down on the mat, your mind's, from 5 years ago, or it's 40 years in the future, or whatever. So every time I find myself, every time I catch myself thinking about the past or thinking about the future, I just cancel it out and just bring it back to the present, because I think that's a way of meditating when you're not necessarily doing the full lotus or doing the half lotus or whatever. It's nice, and I think it's important to catch yourself to strengthen that muscle, like you were saying.
I remember actually on our phone call, you referred it to being like, it's not what you just do on the mat, but what you do off the mat.
Yes,
and like
definitely.
the fact that like you say that you've been meditating religiously over the past year compared to the like previous.
Yeah.
What did that look like to you? Like, what changed off the mat that helped the process?
Definitely. What that looks like to me is just consistency. And I think, as I was saying, I think the hardest part of meditating, in my experience, I don't know if you found it similar, but is doing it super duper consistently. More than, I think if you can do more than sort of 4 times a week, then you're really nailing it. But the best way is to do it every single day. Doesn't need to be like super long. I think I'm pushing myself for half an hour, but sometimes half an hour is a bit difficult. But
No,
minimum
fair.
20 minutes, for sure.
Yeah, I do minimum 10 minutes a day.
Yeah.
And then let's say if I'm doing 10 minutes in the morning, then it helps me reframe my day. Actually, you know what? Let me say this to all listeners. For those who are listening right now, one of the best advice I could give you is try and do 10 minutes of meditation for 10 days straight, and to
Yes.
see the difference in, like, even write down the difference, write how you feel on the first day compared to the third day and compared to the seventh day. And even that mental log will help you sort of analyze and interpret how your feelings are in that moment. Because an obstacle for me, not just the consistency, was the fact that you've got like increased awareness. So one app that I use is Headspace.
Yes.
And if you're
For sure.
yeah, do you know what I mean? It's a great app. So that app was actually founded in 2010, and it's a app that makes meditation really accessible because it's on an iPhone. Like, you can go on the app, you can have alarms for when you want to meditate, you can have little animation videos that describes how you're feeling at certain moments. And I felt that was really helpful in assisting my meditation journey, because I could again feel relatable. So let me use an example. So with meditation, let's say you've been meditating for 2 months like I had. I was happy because I felt this sense of clarity. I felt I just felt very awake. I felt very clear, very sensitive to sort of the information that was being provided to me, whether that's me walking down the street or me going to the shop. I could notice it,
Of course.
Meditation helps with that. However, because I've got so much awareness now, I'm able to see the dark things in my mind like super clearly and
Yeah.
like quite vividly. And that at first really intimidated me, because I was like, bro, I'm doing meditation to alleviate my anxiety and depression. Why is it the fact that I'm seeing it clearer? And during that stage, I remember going onto Headspace, going onto a little animation video, and they've got hundreds, like they've got like little videos for advice. And the video was like basically an animation clip, so super accessible, super like you can understand it, it's just really lighthearted. And it just basically spoke about it's not the fact that these darker things in your mind are harsher or they want to hurt you is the fact that you've been practicing meditation and you can just see it clearer. But remember that thoughts are temporary. Like, thoughts come and go. And if you can practice noting, which is a technique that you learn in meditation, it's when a thought comes into your mind and you gently note it away, as if you were tapping it away with a feather, you're able to then reinstill that sense of presence again and come back to your optimum, come back to your baseline, because meditation can sort of take you out of your head. But then that realizing that I'm not alone in that moment. And there's, like, even if I look at apps now, they've got 1 million plus subscribers. So the fact that I felt isolated, then I watched a animation video that explained my isolation because I was having a deep thought. That's also relatable to everybody else who's done meditation, everybody else who's on that app. So I'm able to sort of take advice from there and use it on my day-to-day, which I think is amazing.
Definitely. And I think what you were saying there about I think that's one of the issues. I was going to say problem, but it's not a problem of meditation. It's just something that happens because of it. I think when you meditate, you are faced with the darkness of your own persona and, you know, who you are and the terrible things you've done and said in the past. And meditation sort of shines a light onto that. But the way, like you were saying, the way to deal with it is not to run from it or turn away. In fact, I think it's important to turn inwards and acknowledge it. And like you were saying with the noting, like if the feeling comes up or whatever comes up, you just note it. You just all you have to do is acknowledge it, sit on it for a bit if you want to, and then it will go away. But if you just keep bringing it back to the breath, like you were saying, everything is sort of transient and temporary anyway. So I think really, if you do experience those kind of dark periods, that is growth. That is definitely growth. It's necessary, because meditation, you can't just use it to switch off and use meditation as a distraction. Meditation is not it is a safe space for 10 minutes or whatever, but it's not a place where you can go to shut your eyes to, you know, who you truly are. And
you can't hide meditation.
Definitely, exactly, and it will shine a spotlight on it whether you want it to or not. You know, ultimately, I think if what you were saying there as well, just rewinding a little bit about the 10 minutes and the 10 days, that is absolutely correct, because that is how I got started. So I did the 10 minutes, 10 days, and I think I did, and then I did 10 minutes, 15 days, and then 15 minutes, 15 days, whatever. So if anybody is listening and they are interested in sort of dipping their toes into it, definitely do the 10 minutes, 10 days. I don't think enough can be said for sort of guided meditation as well, listening to somebody sort of guide you through it. If you don't know what to do, I think meditation is more than just sitting down for 10 minutes. There's certain processes you need to go through, and I think guided meditation is definitely the best way forward. Headspace, that Andy guy, what a lifesaver. He sounds like such a cool guy.
No, he's such a cool... I want to re-watch his TED Talk, because I was like researching for this episode and stuff, and I just was able to sort of appreciate how meditation is for everyone and anyone. Like, they used examples of individuals who are Buddhist monks. They used examples with individuals who are in prison, you know, and they, like, I remember the host or the medical the meditation practitioner in the prison, if anything, they were like, these prisoners are sitting in a cell all day. They have to sit with their biggest fears, with their worries, with all the intersectional and institutional damage that prison has. They have to sit in it. So it's best for them to be able to do it now, so then when they rehabilitate and when they go outside, they can take that sense of presence, you know. Obviously it's relatable, it's different to everyone. Like, she even said how some people are probably taking that class just because they need like it will look good for them. But then even so, like, this little skill, which you can access anywhere, which is free, which will give you long-term satisfaction and long-term contentment, is like needs to be shouted about. It needs to be praised about.
Definitely.
It's such
It's so valuable. It's so valuable as
so
well, especially in the
valuable.
long time. In the long
Exactly.
term, definitely. In my opinion, I think there's a few challenges with the meditation. The first one is definitely making it a regular thing. That is,
Yeah.
without a doubt, the hardest part. In my experience, I've not spoken to anybody who was like, yeah, I started meditating, 365 days ago, and I've not missed a single day, because that
Yeah.
shit just does not happen. I think there's also I don't know if you ever get it, but with the restlessness, I found, particularly when I was going from 10 to 15 minutes, and then especially when I was going from 15 to 20 minutes, those last 5 minutes, my God, I just wanted to get up and just sprint or something. Just the restlessness is so difficult to sit with,
Yeah.
I think. But I think you need to. I always set a timer, because then I know I'm somebody else is counting for me, and then I can just sort of sit back and enjoy it.
Exactly.
But what you were saying about the darkness, I think the only way out really is through. You have to, as I say, turn to face it, and you have to accept it, because that's going to be more successful for both yourself and for the practice generally.
And show yourself so much kindness whilst you're in those places. I think
Yes.
that's another thing that meditation teaches you. When something happens to us, it inflicts an emotional response, but it also, depending on how you respond to it, it can also increase resistance. Rewind.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So it was found here, right? So Headspace and Calm are both apps that you can use for meditation, and they both have 1 million subscribers. But Headspace is valued at £320 million, and Calm is valued at £1 billion, right?
God.
And those numbers alone, right? There's a certain discomfort, not discomfort, unease, let's say.
Certain irony.
Irony, exactly.
Yeah.
Because it's like, how am I participating in a practice that is supposed to alleviate physical and psychological stress, right? Yeah, I'm also fueling a money machine that... Sorry, I kind of, when you just go blank after saying something.
No, it's true. It's what you're saying. Definitely, it's true. I think meditation as a practice goes back thousands of years, and then suddenly there's companies worth upwards of like 100 million who are sort of profiting off it.
It started in early Hinduism, and even what I was talking to you about earlier with the fact that East representation of the East became more visible in the media. Sort of helped the West sort of include or involve these forms. But I even was watching interviews yesterday, and like the Dalai Lama was on what show was it? He was on the Larry King. It was a Larry King interview, and the Dalai Lama was literally loved. He was going from places to places. He was having interviews with people on the media and stuff, and when I see that kind of representation of a media practice, because it's someone who's an expert in their field, but they've also come with so much culture and experience that they're sort of educating people in a relatable way, because it's like an interview on TV. However, when you look at it in Headspace, it's like, how is the fact that I'm going onto my smartphone, which has so many apps that literally is linked to causing feelings of isolation, going to bring me meditation? It's like a not double-edged sword, it's like a paradox. It's not bittersweet, but it's very
there's something not quite right there, definitely.
Exactly.
For sure. I think personally I use an app called Insight. So I think I spent so long with the Headspace, and I've done so many different guided meditations that I sort of know what I'm doing, and I sort of know what to expect. So with the Insight app, it's basically you have a range of different Tibetan bowl sounds, different frequencies and different resonances and stuff. I'm only on the cheapo, the free version, so I get all the different bells. But when I meditate, I set a bell for 20 minutes. If I'm doing half an hour, I'll set a bell for half an hour, but I'll also set a bell for about 15 minutes in as well, just so I know kind of whereabouts I am, because that alone sort of helps having the bell in the middle helps alleviate any restlessness that I sort of encounter. But it's quite right what you were saying. I think using the smartphone technology with the meditation is a bit strange, but it definitely helps. I think even just to have like the guided meditations, if you have like 1,000 guided meditations at the touch of a button in your pocket all the time, surely that's it's going to drive you more to meditate. But I think the thing with the smartphone is, like you were saying, obviously it is a paradox, because it's easy to get very distracted, and you can find yourself in a void of infinite, endless scrolling on Facebook when you could have spent that time doing a 10-minute meditation, which is going to benefit you a hell of a lot more, rather than wondering what fucking Sam or Stephen did, last night. Yeah,
do you know what I mean? Or who your old classmate got married to? Like, I don't need to know that. Like,
definitely. I think the more I get into meditation, the more I've stepped away from sort of social media, or at least sort of posting on it. Social media is it's funny, because when I find myself scrolling through Facebook, and kind of, when you meditate and then you sort of remember that, oh shit, I'm supposed to be meditating. When I scroll through Facebook, I'm like, wait, I'm just sat here scrolling through Facebook. What the fuck am I doing? So then I stop, and you go back to reset. So it's funny how you carry over that same sort of line of thinking.
You're honestly, like, you're so right. The amount of times where, like, for me, I think Instagram is like my social media of choice, let's say.
Yeah.
And I used to make my algorithms work for me, and I still do. Like, if I go into, how people talk about like the negative effects of social media. When I go into social media, when I go into my account, I'm getting affirmations,
yes,
I'm getting tarot readings, I'm getting like more messages from the divine telling me that I'm great, but I'm still using social media. Like, I remember there was this one time where I wanted to stop using Instagram, and then I felt deflated because I wasn't getting those reminders of, oh, you're sick, you're great, you've got this tarot reading, you've got this. And it's just like, there's a word for it that's on the tip of my tongue, but it's just so like, it's just, sorry, I don't know how to explain it. It's just not quite right, is it? It's just
Definitely.
like,
it's funny, because what you were saying about the Instagram, I follow a bunch of those spiritual pages, but I think it's funny because spirituality isn't about seeing affirmations on Instagram. Do you know what I mean? It's about like getting to the grips of like what reality is and what your reality is. And I think everybody's spiritual practices would probably be a bit deeper if they took Instagram away totally. Like, it's great to follow those pages, don't get me wrong, there's some terrific art, and there's some great things that you see, there's some great quotes that you think sort of enlivens your day, and it is fantastic. But I think Instagram is an example of just the temporariness of everything. You could see the best quote ever on Instagram, the best piece of art ever, and you will look at it and go, yeah, that's great, double tap, and then just swipe past it, and you'll never think about it again.
Well, I guess that's why the saving feature is great, because I do this a lot where I just save stuff and then I'll come back to it, and then now it's my inspo for a piece of art that I'm making, or I'm really into like making my own balms and scrubs and stuff. Instagram is like a good tool for learning about ingredients, but actually learning about it in a way that's a bit more insightful. Because if I'm learning from a lady who has an independent business who's been doing this job for 10 years, that experience is going to be much more valuable to me than me watching a YouTube video,
For sure, definitely. And it's funny you mentioned that, because the whole save feature is just, honestly, I don't even know how the fuck Instagram works half the time. I'm
No,
not
fair.
I think I created a Twitter account once, maybe like 5 years ago, and just never touched it because I couldn't figure out how to get it to work. But I think there was a guy called Cal Newport who wrote a book called Digital Minimalism, which I really recommend reading. It's basically about sort of stepping away from social media and about the positive impacts it can have on your life. But he was saying that the best way of doing it is to save the things that you find interesting, and then set aside 1 hour every 2 weeks or whatever just to catch up on it, rather than trying to scroll back through and trying to find that thing that you saw like 2 weeks ago that you can't remember who it was, that kind of thing. So
No, definitely. Oh, that sounds amazing. Oh, I'm just taken back. How you feeling, Jack?
Hey, yeah, I'm okay. Just dwelling on the tarot, mate. I'm so fucking nervous. I'm just
Oh,
worried.
don't be.
I'm worried the cards are going to tell me that something death awaits me very, very, very
Oh
soon.
no, no, no. That's not. That's what I mean. Like, I mean, that's not. I mean, that is possible, but it's not going to be possible today. And the thing is, it's like there's cards like okay, so let's say the death card that you just talked about, right? The death card is a theme. It's called it's a major arcana, so it's an overarching theme in our life. And the death card literally means rebirth, and
Change,
that's
yeah,
not
yeah,
necessarily like depending on what cards you get.
yeah.
It can indicate stuff. Do you know what I mean? But like the way that I do tarot, like you would have seen it in the self-love episode. The way that I do tarot is literally like a conversation, and it's more like like I'm not doing those readings. If that makes sense. Oh, I don't know how to explain it. So I'm burning some Palo Santo for you.
No problem.
So this is gonna
What is that?
cleanse.
Is that sage?
No, so I've got sage here, but I've got Palo Santo over here. And Palo Santo, it brings abundance, it brings love, it brings sort of a nurturing energy, I'd say, because like with it, both things, both sage and Palo Santo clear negative energy. They clean the air, but with Palo Santo, it for me it like changes what the air was to now fill it with all love and fill it with joy and fill it with like self love. You know,
Definitely, definitely.
like yeah, and it smells amazing.
It looks like a blunt.
Yeah, like
Shall we start doing?
yeah, amazing. We shall do it. So I'm just gonna shuffle the cards, and that means Tarot Talks is
No
here.
problem. I think I have a perception of tarot that's already ingrained in me that's probably super wrong and super immature. So we'll see how we get on.
I think the thing is with tarot, like because I mean, I think with tarot we're there's not the history of tarot isn't publicized. You have to go look for it. So there's
Yeah.
so much stigma and stories attached to it. Like
Definitely.
there's one rule that was like a thing when you were old, when like back in the day was
Yeah.
tarot cards can't be given to you. No, tarot cards have to be given to you. You can't buy them yourself.
I said that to you on the phone, yeah.
Oh yeah,
I
exactly. You
remember,
said that to
yeah,
me on the
yeah,
phone,
yeah.
and like it's like yeah, I mean like yeah, that is true. Like that was true for those times, but then also like tarot might have been something that was like considered of high status
Yeah.
in those times. So what if they were giving those as a form of like continuing the line
Yeah.
that it travels? You know, so it's different to everyone. But yeah, what's your idea for the question? What are you thinking of?
My question would be, how can I use my experience of meditation and my meditation practice to benefit other people?
Okay. How can you use your meditation practice to better other people and yourself? Amazing. So as you're talking, two cards like flew out, but they flew out in a really distinct way that I'm just like, I'm like, whoa, I need to listen to you. Like, so yeah, I'm just shuffling some cards. Actually, you know what? I'm going to shuffle and you tell me when to stop.
You can stop. Should be good.
Amazing. Right. And tell me if I should go from the start, the middle, or the bottom of the deck.
Go from the top. Go from the start. The classic.
Amazing. Oh, I love this reading. So, you got the moon, right? And the moon is a major arcana. They're talking about a major theme in our life. We're all going to have to the moon is the moon, isn't it? It's lunar cycles, it's our dreams, it's light in darkness, it is secretive as well. There's sort of a mystery and eeriness that comes with the moon.
Yes.
And that could suggest an illusion. It could suggest uncertainty. It can indicate that an individual has had to go inwards or has had to retreat in a way that may have happened because of deception. It may have happened because of isolation or discomfort. But the moon is a constant, even
Yeah.
though we see different types of the moon wherever we are in the world or wherever the moon is in its cycle. It's that indication of things coming back around and feeling comfortable with the process. I think because you've got two wolves here and then you've got this crab that's like eaching to the shore. And the thing is, with the crab, it's reminiscent of when things come up to the surface. So all of the things that you were previously rejecting or anything that you were previously uncomfortable with.
Yeah.
But it's also such a positive card as well, because the thing is, you've got the moon upright, and the moon is shining light on your wild, your tamed, and sort of the things that are coming to the surface. So in relation to your question of how can my meditation practice help me and help others, I think it's again like feeding or filling or just having so much love pouring, or maybe not love is the right word. I want to say acceptance and kindness, because when you look at things with acceptance and kindness, you can nurture yourself and the people around you in a response that will give them greater clarity after their moon period or after the cycle. I say this because you also got these two cards that literally flung out. And it's funny because, like, I know before you were quite worried or skeptical about this reading, but this shows you have nothing to worry about, baby. You've got all the cups.
I don't know what I'm looking at, but yeah.
Honey, I'll tell you. So basically, the first card that you got is the Page of Cups, and the Page of Cups is an individual who is like the younger, like non-gender specific, but it's like the younger individual in a family of four, right?
Interesting.
So they're
Very
useful,
interesting.
they're enthusiastic, they have this sensitivity that hasn't been hurt or hard done by the world yet,
Yeah.
if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But with this identity, it may mean that someone may have rose-tinted glasses to the situation, or someone might be naive to a situation that's placed in front of them. I talk about emotion because we're talking about cups, and you've got cups, and this is all about emotion here. And the fact that you've got the Page of Cups suggests that you've come into an ideal state in your life where your creativity and your enthusiasm is present, is there, but it can also be, I don't want to say encouraged, because I feel like that's not the right word for it, but it could be harnessed in a way that will give you more fulfillment.
Yes.
Because the thing is, with, like, you want your cup to runneth over. We all want our cups to run over. We want our cups to be filled with so much abundance that we know that our infinite power, the power of ours is infinite. And that's the idea of cups. We want to get emotional intelligence, We want to get the emotional capacity to appreciate and also receive love. The next card that you got was the Nine of Cups. And this individual is so content. They are literally have 9 cups awarded there, sitting there present, happy. They've got an abundance of things that creates them joy. But they're also sitting on a wooden stool. So that even says to me the fact that they are able to find gratitude in the present nature. Like, a wooden bench is just a wooden bench, yet this guy is happy. And it also says that his cups are temporary, so finding comfort on the bench, surrounded by the cups, whilst they're there or they're not there. That's where your power lies. And I think that's in relation to your question. So what did you ask? You asked, how is my mindfulness going to help, well, my meditation going to help me and the people around me? I think this reading encourages you to help others shine light on their shadow selves whilst they're approaching this period, because your enthusiasm on this subject, and you knowing that it can bring you so much emotional fulfillment in the future or even in that present, is the message that you're giving to others. What do you feel about the card so far?
I don't know. Interesting. Very interesting. I sort of see, not to go into it too much, but I certainly see aspects of my character like that. And I think the Page of Cups there, being the younger individual in a family of 4, I'm asking myself if that's me or if that's my younger brother in the card. So I don't know. Interesting. I'm probably going to do a bit of reading up afterwards. But it's funny that the shadow self sort of came up, because that's what I've been obsessing with the last few weeks, as I say.
But I also think it's mad how, like, we were talking about how, because we do meditation, we're able to be mindful enough and kind enough to bring ourselves back to the present moment. And this shows that. It shows the fact that you're not afraid of acknowledging and refocusing on your wild, tame, or dark sides. You're illuminating that path for you and for generations to follow. With the Page of Cups, it could it's a personality. So it could be your brother, it could be you. It basically wants to showcase an ideal mastery, because we all want to sort of harness this energy in a healthy way. Because the Page of Cups, to me, it reminds me of my inner child, because it's that sort of youthful energy of being forward, being really excitable, being really just so amazed by how the world works.
Yes.
But with that comes so much doubt if you don't have discernment and if you don't practice gratitude. Because I remember when I was going through a very let's say frustrating period, I was always getting the Page of Cups in reverse, and that's being either insensitive or overly sensitive. That's rose-tinted glasses. That's being naive. That's like, oh, why aren't you guys looking at my cool new thing? I want to show you all. But just because they can't see it the way that you do doesn't take away from your power. Like, it's all from within. But I think the moon is sort of reflective of the journey.
I think what you were saying about the childlike nature, I think it's important when you go through life to try and maintain a childlike quality in your approach to it. So I'm not saying that we have to be childlike and pretend like the bad things don't exist, because they certainly do. But I think when you go about your day-to-day life, I think as you get older, you find less fun in the general life experience. You've got rent to pay, you've got this to do, this, that, the other. So I think it's very important, especially for me, to maintain that sort of childlike approach to a lot of things. So I definitely agree with you there.
Because that's the thing, like, if we look at the moon as like simply as a word, as intuition, right? Yes. And the Page of Cups looking at is creative opportunities or like intuitive messages, curiosity, and then looking at the Nine of Cups, which is like contentment, like sort of satisfaction. It shows a story of an individual and like the stages of life that they've come through, because it's like through the moon we're able to see and unlock what would usually scare us, right? Yeah. But with that experience strengthens our intuition. It strengthens our intuitive nudge into what we want and what we don't want. And we're able to sort of develop boundaries in this period. I think in relation to the Page of Cups, it's what you said. It's resparking that that childhood curiosity and using it to find comfort, contentment, satisfaction within self. Because that man's happy whilst he's sitting on a wooden stool, whilst all the cups are behind him. Like, he's
Yes.
still going to be happy if they're present or not. But that's what the Nine of Cups are reflective of, you know?
Definitely, and I think that childhood curiosity, that childlike approach to things, I think that's if you've not started meditating, I think really that is definitely the best approach to bring to it. Treat it like not like a game, but treat it with kind of a lightheartedness, because meditation it can be dark and it can be serious, but most of the time it's terrific and it's great and I love it. So I think having that sort of approach to it where you just take it 1 minute at a time and just see what happens.
Yeah, and showing gratitude. Like, there's a lot of, like, when I look at this reading, it just shows me how much love there is out there.
Yeah.
And how, if it's appreciated or shown, recognized, acknowledged, whatever, it can give you a sense of contentment in self that's unimaginable and can't even be compared to whatever's outside of you.
Definitely, I agree.
Oh, this has been a really nice reading.
Definitely, I was scared. I'm not gonna lie to you, very scared.
No, that's the thing. Like, if you're not aware, like, people are scared, but that's why I'm here to be like, it's not scary.
I always thought tarot cards were a bit like a Ouija board.
Oh, the thing is, like, there's so much hysteria that comes around tarot that I because there's so much hysteria surrounding tarot, you need to do your own independent research. But the thing is, like, what I like to show to people is that, look, I love spirituality and I love faith, but I also love psychology. And if I can use these cards to show you different perspectives, then that's what I've done right. You know, that's what I've done well. Because there's so many different meanings to tarot. There's room to get confused, or there's room to doubt your ability because you're like, oh, what if this thing means this thing? But through strength, through practice, and through repetition, we got readings, B.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, that means it takes us to our last segment. It's gone so fast, hasn't it?
Definitely.
This is the direct message, and this is well, it's just a little message you want to leave listeners with. What is your message, Jack, that you want to leave listeners with?
I don't know. There's so much to say. I think if you've not meditated, start doing it, and if you have started doing it, do more for longer, because really that's it. I think I found this quote that I wanted to read you because I thought it was so apt.
Yes.
And I thought it might be a nice thing to reflect on, because I think about this quite a lot. I first saw this quote maybe like a year and a half ago, and I've seen it crop up a couple of times since then. I think it's often falsely attributed to the Buddha, but it's from sort of that region anyway. But it's said, "What have you gained from meditation?" The answer would be, "It is not what I have gained that is important, but rather what I have lost: greed, hatred, and delusion."
Ooh.
Definitely. I think
powerful.
meditation is all about sort of shedding the ego, for me, and I think you have to overcome these things like the restlessness, the laziness, like, oh, I can't be bothered to do meditation today, whatever, the doubt of, I'm not doing it right, or I can't do it. I think as well, people say sometimes if you can't find time to meditate for 10 minutes, you probably need to do it for 20 minutes. So definitely, meditation, I just think is probably the most important thing in my life, and I think if everybody in the world meditated, I think the world would be a very different place.
Oh, same. Sorry, I just got distracted because of what you said as well. It kind of just reminded me of the tarot card, because it's like it's taking away ego, it's taking away restlessness, it's taking away frustration, right? You learn that in the moon card. You learn to separate yourself from, not separate yourself, because to say that you're separate suggests that it's wrong, and that actually creates resistance.
Yes.
But to learn to live and accept these facets in our life that cause us form of unease will unlock and sort of refresh the pathway for me to continue, because then
Definitely.
I know that I can get through anything.
Of course. And the longer I meditate for, the more I realise that there are many layers to self-acceptance. It's not just like, I accept myself and that's that. You know, there's many different things that will crop up. And just when you think you're kind of on top of it, something else you'll think about something else and you'll be like, oh, well, shit. I need to learn to accept that part of myself as well. I think it's easier to observe another's shadow than it is to acknowledge your own. And I think that the whole thing with the moon card and the tarot reading, the only way that you can be whole as a person is you have to be willing to step into the dark recesses of the mind, I think, in my opinion.
Oh, amazing. Thank you. That was great. That was
No
great.
problem.
I don't even know what mine's going to be. Wow. The direct message for this week, listeners, I would say, definitely meditate if you never have, because it's so beneficial. I'd say one thing that I want to let listeners know is this idea of showing yourself kindness, showing yourself niceness, showing yourself acceptance. Like, it needs to be repeated behavior. It needs to be something that is genuine, you know? But it also, like, I think if I was told, right, to shower myself with kindness, showering myself with acceptance in stages of my life where I was resisting, it would have made my life a lot easier. And that is it's relatable, and that's, again, a hard pill to swallow, because if you're at the worst of your worst, me telling you, accept yourself, like, you're not going to want to hear it. So, listeners, tell yourselves, tell your family, tell your friends, encourage yourselves to show light, show kindness, and show acceptance in places which usually cause you resistance. That's what I want to leave you guys with.
Definitely. One thing I wanted to ask you, Sarah, I don't know about you, but I find, particularly when I was sort of starting to meditate, the more I meditated, the more I looked forward to meditating and the more I enjoyed the practice.
Yeah, honestly, I think because you learn about different types of meditation. Like, there's this person that I became familiar with called Deepak Chopra.
Yes.
Yeah, and they're amazing. And I was meditating, then found out about this individual, and now I just want to watch their interviews. I want to watch their meditations. I want to read their books. Like, I learned something new about myself through this practice, and I think it's that childhood curiosity, but also, like, with that childhood curiosity, it will inevitably find other things to interest you and to make you more curious for. And that helps with the momentum. That helps with the consistency. Meditation doesn't have to be as intimidating as it's projected to be, you know? So as you meditate more, you find out more interesting ways and more fun ways to learn about meditating. And that's what's going to help you become a meditator.
Definitely. Hands down.
Oh, amazing. That's actually gone so quick. Oh, thank you so much, Jack.
No problem at all. Thank you for having me on here, Sarah. I really appreciate it. I know it's taken us a while to find a date, but I'm glad we managed to do it.
Don't worry, it's okay. Like, it's great, and we loved it. We love you, and meditate to elevate. That's the mood. Amazing. Could you please let listeners know of any socials? Wait, do you even have Instagram or Twitter or no?
No, not personally. I play in a death metal band called Chainsaw Castration, and I also do some.
Plug them in.
Definitely. We do a clothing company with my partner Georgia called Temple of Literature, and we're looking at doing a podcast soon. So just go on Instagram, type in Temple of Literature, and you can come and buy some nice Lord of the Rings shirts.
No, Jack, that was amazing. Thank you so much. And thank you again, listeners, for sharing, for liking. I'm so happy with how DM Talks is coming about. And yeah, no, I'm super excited. You can follow us on Instagram at DM.Talks. And yeah, we'll see you next week for another episode. Thank you so much, everyone. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.